welcome to Thrive with Nicole. Now this episode, as titled, is all about a spiritual journey feeling lonely. So as I mentioned, it's all about, a spiritual journey can feel lonely. And, a bit like if you think about a lone wolf, it can feel like that sometimes, that we are here on our own. We're here to navigate this journey here on the earthly plane all by ourselves. And it can feel that, especially in the beginning when we first get started, it can feel very much like we're here on our own. We've just got to figure, all of this stuff out. And like a lone wolf, we can, go on that inner journey, if you like, spending more time in our inner world, less time in the external world. And of course, being our inner world, nobody else has access to that. So of course, you would be forgiven for feeling like you are alone, that you are isolated, and that there is no help or no support coming to help you with that. And I know when, I first started on my spiritual journey many years ago now, be about 13 years now that I started on my spiritual journey back in 2012. It felt like that for me for a really long time. I was just kind of going about it by myself. I had things happen in my life at that time where it really kind of brought me to the edge, brought me to a place where something had to change. And that's really, I guess, what a spiritual awakening is things happen within our external world that pushes us to our inner world, pushes us to look at things in a different way, to understand that there's more to life than what we had been accepting, if you like, or experiencing. So that's where that it tends to start. So it's really looking at that, and then you're like, well, if it's my inner world, no one else has access to that, then I must be supposed to do it by myself. And I've felt that for myself in my own experience a lot. And I was just fumbling through, really trying to really understand what it is that I needed to do, what modalities were going to be helpful to me. How is it that you connect with angels? How is it that I connect with my spirit guides? I didn't know any of that prior to 2012. The way I talk about it now, you probably think I've been doing it my whole life, but I haven't. It only happened, like I say, 13 years ago is where it all started for me. And, and I actually started with doing an angel course. So that's where my journey began. But I was still really fumbling through, trying to understand what it is that I was supposed to be doing, how it is I was supposed to feel, how long was this going to take. But, for me, I didn't have that support. I didn't have that guidance from anyone else that had been through it before. That wasn't available to me at the time, because I was raised in the Catholic faith. So for me, I was the only one in my family that was doing this. I got to a point in my life where the religion just wasn't sitting right for me anymore. So, I stepped outside of that, and then I really had to start to, I guess, rebuild. I had to reconnect and rebuild my relationship with God, with the divine, the creator, however it is that you assign that. And I had to really start to build that from scratch, build it from the ground back up again. So that did feel a little isolating at times. It did feel a little lonely at times, because I said I was raised in the Catholic faith. So I didn't have, my family couldn't exactly help me with what I was doing, because they didn't have any idea. They were raised obviously the same way as I was, and my parents raised us that way. There's nothing wrong with that. It was a beautiful childhood that we had. But as I said, as I grew and as I became an adult, I think it might have been mid-20s, where I really started to question some things within that. It just wasn't sitting right for me anymore. So I had to step out of that. But when you step out of that, you lose what that was. You lose that foundation, and you have to build from scratch, which is what I was doing. So as I said, that can feel very isolating and very lonely, because like I said, there was no one around that could help me or guide me within that. I kind of felt like I was on my own. So within that, I really turned to my angels and turned to my guides. Over time, I learned how to do that. I learned how to bring them in. I learned that yes, we're here on the earthly plane, our soul has lessons to learn, but it doesn't mean that we're left to do that by ourselves. We have a spiritual team. We have a cosmic team that is there to support us always. It's just about leaning into that, really connecting with that to really help us along our path, so that we don't feel so lonely, that we don't feel so isolated. And then what I learned over time with all of the experiences that I had, because, there were strange things that were happening, at first seeing signs and not really understanding what that was, maybe seeing like a light out of the corner of my eye and freaking out a little bit, going, what is that? Having physical experiences of things as I was doing healing, not knowing that that was going to happen. So all of these things that were happening that I didn't understand, but I didn't have any reference for that as well. I couldn't explain it for myself because I didn't really understand what was happening. And as I said, there wasn't anyone around me to guide me through that. But as I look back over my journey, I can understand as to why all of that happened. I can understand why I needed to experience it in the way that I did. Because now I can sit here and say, I understand what it feels like. Personally, I've been through it. I understand that isolation. I understand that loneliness. And the thing too is, a lot of the private clients that I've worked with over the years, a lot of the time they'll come to me, and after a little while of us working together, and we build rapport and they build the trust with me, they'll start to share some of those experiences. And they're like, I know, and they'll always start out with, I know this is going to sound weird. And sometimes it'll be, but maybe not to you. And then they'll share with me what it is that they've been noticing, what it is that they've been experiencing. And yes, if they said this to the lay person, even to people in their life, they would get that. What are you talking about? Why are you being weird? Do I need to order the white bus for you? That sort of thing. So I learned that that was why I went through that experience, so that I could then become this safe place. I could build a safe place. I could build a sacred space, if you like, for where you could feel supported, where you could have a guide and a mentor that has been through it before. And when you come to me and say, well, I noticed this today, I'll be like, yeah, that's normal. That's happened to me. Or I've heard a client has been through that. Absolutely. So then you're validated. You feel understood and you feel seen. So I understand as to why I went through all of that for me to now build what it is that I'm building. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast about the mystical membership, that's exactly what that is. And even if you just take up one part of that, which is the Mystic Haven, which I mentioned, that is our community space off of social media, where you can come and you can say, well, I was sitting, in my lounge room last night, just watching TV, and all of a sudden I heard a sound, but there was no one there. We can help you unravel that. We can help you to understand what that might have been. We can help you to know what to do with that. Or, it might be something like, I don't know, I was out and I saw a white feather. What does that mean? I can share with you what that means. I can share with you what to do with that. Again, you might be seeing numbers all of the time. You might be seeing 444. I see that all the time. It happens to be the price of the membership, right? So that is our connection, to the angels. So there's all of these things that could be happening for you, but you don't, like I said, I didn't have a reference. I didn't know how to unravel what that meant. I didn't know what to do with all of those things. And that is why, I've built this sacred space, this mystical membership, for that reason. So like I say, that's just one part of what's on offer, and then we have the tapping library, which is really going to help you with your healing. And then the monthly personalized tapping that I'm going to do is going to give you an experience of working with me one-on-one for a quarter of the price, right? For you to really start to feel how tapping can help you and start on that healing journey. And then if you start to have, strange experiences around that, you start to have maybe some strange things happening within your body, I can guide you through that. I can help you with what that is. Because I think sometimes too, when we have physical experiences like that cannot be explained by traditional medicine, that's happened to me a lot over the years. If we can understand what that is, then it takes the fear away. It takes that scariness away. Because I know for me, like, as I'm getting older, you know, I'm only a few days away now from heading into 50. Then, you know, we get these little niggles and things, and it's going to be like, what is that? Am I having a heart attack? Like, as we get older and older, those things start to freak us out a little bit. So if we can really start to debunk some of that, if you can really understand, well, what's actually happening, and understand what is a spiritual journey, understand what is healing, how long is it going to take? Is it lifelong? It is. Little tip there. It is lifelong. We are continuing to do this, but we're working through the layers. So it's really allowing you to know that you don't have to do it alone. I did it alone, yes. I didn't have that support available. But like I said, that is why I've been through that experience to come to this place where now I can provide that for you. I can provide a space where you can start to embark slowly. We don't have to jump in the deep end. We can just start to maybe connect with our guardian angel, really start to connect with her, with him, and allow them to support you. And we're doing it in a very safe and slow manner. So, and the thing too is, what I've always said to all of my private clients is that I don't expect you to do it in the way that I do it. Just because I have a certain belief about something doesn't mean that has to be your belief. This is a space for you to start, one, to feel safe, to really start to turn inward into that inner world and start to understand yourself on a deeper level. Start to understand what are your beliefs and what are beliefs that have been put on you. Like I mentioned, for me, growing up in the Catholic faith, that came from my parents. That was, I guess you could say that was put on us, but that was what it was. That was our faith. So then I needed to unravel that to start to go, okay, well, what were my parents' beliefs and what were my beliefs? And I've been able to unravel that over time. And, you know, stepping onto the spiritual journey for me, it was scary. You know, like I said, coming from the family that I came from, I'm really the only one that's very much into angels, very much into spirit guides, and that's how I live my life. My mum's come around a lot with that now, you know, just from hearing me and the things that I've learnt and experienced over time. She's come more around to that now. My siblings, not really. Every now and then they might ask about it, but for the most part, that's not really their way. That's not their belief. That is mine, and that's completely okay. So it's just starting to understand that for yourself. It doesn't have to be what it is that even your partner does. Like for me, and I mentioned this on many of my podcasts about my husband, you know, he's very black and white. He's not into this sort of work at all. He's not into the whole spiritual journey or even into healing at all. And that's okay. You know, we've been together for, I think, 30 years now, and it's fine. We don't have to have the same beliefs, but we have to respect each other. And he allows that with me. And even, you know, since his parents have passed, I noticed we have this black butterfly that appears outside our back door, and that's near where because he works from home, where his desk is. And I've noticed, you know, he'll look out and he'll see the black butterfly and he'll be like, hey, Mum. So he's come around to it a little bit, but in his own way. So it's really starting to do that for yourself. And that's what this sacred space will be about, is giving you the space, giving you the safety for you to start to do that without feeling like you're going to be judged, without feeling like you're going crazy or you're being weird or any of those things. Like I said, you can come into that space and you might have a similar story like what I've said with my husband and his mum being the black butterfly that's been outside our door now really since she passed. You know, and you can say, I've noticed this, and I'll be able to say to you, yeah, that's what this is. Like, we can tune into what that is for you. And like when I was talking about the signs before, I can help you to tune into what is that for you. So I mentioned, you know, I see 444 all the time. I use angel numbers all through my business, through, you know, the prices that I charge with things. That's my way. But, you know, you might see, say, you see 1111 in the morning or 111 in the afternoon or early morning maybe. What I would be getting you to do is to really sit with that. So as you see that time, just stop for a moment and ask what the message is. Because yes, each of those numbers have a certain meaning, but it's also important when we see them that we stop and we really connect into what that is for us. And then you'll get that extra message about what that is. So that's really what this space is about, is just giving you that space to really stop, to tune in, to learn and to understand so much more about yourself, and to know that you're not alone, that it doesn't have to be isolating. Yes, our inner world is our inner world, but it's not like we're coming into your inner world. It's still your sanctuary, but it means that you can feel supported, you can feel guided, and you can feel validated that what you're experiencing is supposed to happen, and that we can give you some dialogue around that. We can give you some reference for what that is, and you can be with other people that are just like you, that are going through similar things. So you don't feel alone anymore. You don't feel lonely. We can still be our lone wolf, but as a pack. Because we've got to remember that too about the lone wolf. Yes, they are a lone wolf, but they also have their pack. So it's really important to know that you deserve to have your pack. And if this is calling to you, then maybe this is a space for you. So I really hope that that has helped you a little bit in understanding our spiritual journey and why it might feel lonely and isolating, and how we can change that for you while you're still spending time within your inner world, and having the growth and the healing within that, but also knowing that we have your back. So I really want to thank you for being here, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.